Eastern and Southern Kentucky. This is WYMT Mountain News at 6.
Good evening again. Tonight, a man is dead and many questions surround that death. They found him in a burned home last night in Laurel County. Right now, investigators do not know what the cause of the fire was or how he died. WYMT's Hannah Reynolds talked to neighbors.
Neighbors living on Sugar Lane in Lilly.
There's never anything that goes on here.
Say their street is a quiet one.
I mean, we walk up and down the road all the time, walk around the neighborhood. I mean, it's usually super quiet.
But that changed Sunday evening around 7:30.
All of a sudden, like, I seen some lady pull in my yard, didn't know what was going on, and then fire trucks just started flying by.
Neighbors rushed to help as smoke bellowed out of a home nearby.
When they arrived on scene and extinguished the flames, they did locate a male subject inside the residence deceased and contacted state police.
They identified that person as 58-year-old Charles Barton. Now, investigators try to figure out what happened.
The cause and origin of the fire has not been determined yet, or his exact cause of death,
leaving many worries for neighbors.
So weird. And if I was them, I'd be talking to everybody trying to figure out what happened. It was awful. It's awful.
Troopers say Barton's body was sent to Frankfort Sunday evening. The state medical examiner will try to determine exactly how he died. In Laurel County, I'm Hannah Reynolds, WYMT Mountain News.
Troopers say they expect to have the preliminary cause of death later on tonight. Today, the man police say hit 80 Fuson on a Bell County road, killing him, pleaded not guilty. Joshua Darren Ellis will now appear back in court next Tuesday. That day, we could learn more about what evidence police have against him. Investigators say after hitting Fuson, Ellis and his 15-year-old son left the scene. They charged him with failure to render aid, resulting in the death of Fuson. Police also charged Ellis's son with tampering with physical evidence. He's now in the juvenile detention center. Today, we learned the name of the woman investigators believe someone shot in Perry County last week. Mary Napier died last Thursday. They say people riding four-wheelers found her. So far, police have not made any arrest. Her funeral is Wednesday at 1 at the Engle Bowling Funeral Home. She was only 32 years old. And new information today about a child found in a Knox County pond. State police say the child was a 3-year-old boy. The circumstances surrounding his death remain a mystery. He was found in the pond on Wilton School Road in the Woodbine community Saturday evening. Investigators say right now it's too early to speculate on what actually happened.
And clouds are still trying to make their way out of the area, especially up to our north and to our east. But the good news is that we do see sunshine return as we head into your Tuesday. You'll notice here on the National Weather Service camera in Jackson, those mostly cloudy skies throughout the day. Starting to break now. We're seeing a little bit of sunshine there as well, as we are seeing almost those mostly clear skies. And even into Whitesburg, much of the same story. Blue skies have returned. Sunshine have returned as well. But for other areas up into the Big Sandy, you'll notice here on satellite and radar, those clouds still trying to make their way out of the area. But overall, most of us are starting to finally get in on that sunshine today. Now, temperatures are a little bit cooler, especially where those clouds have stuck around a little bit longer into those low to mid 40s, especially up into Prestonsburg, Pikeville, over to Jackson, showing a 50 here in Hazard, and those low to mid 50s down into the Cumberland Valley, where they have seen a little bit more sunshine for today. And as we head throughout the rest of this evening, you'll notice temperatures continuing to drop. We are going to continue to see those skies clear as well, and those mostly clear skies will make for a pretty chilly night ahead, as a frost advisory has been issued for a good portion of our area. I'll have that full forecast coming up for you guys in just a little bit. Macy.
All right, thank you, Paige. A Kentucky family is safe after a tree came crashing down on their cabin at Lake Cumberland, with them still inside. That happened on Sunday morning. Adam Berniston is down in the area and brings us that story.
The cabin is located in the Lake Cumberland State Resort Park in an area now closed off to the public. According to H.M. Bottom, the emergency manager for Russell County, the family of 6 was on vacation from Louisville when the storms came through Sunday morning, causing a tree to fall into the cabin, knocking it off its foundation and nearly onto its side.
When we got there, there were 6 people in the cabin, and they were out at that time. There's 3 kids and adults. A neighboring cabin there, I understand, maybe helped them get out.
Now, according to Bottom, 2 children and a 3rd family member were initially taken to the hospital with non-life-threatening injuries, and then later a 4th family member was taken to the hospital with chest pains. But fortunately, they are all doing okay.
It's very lucky because, you know, the cabin, once the tree went into the cabin, it took it off the foundation, and behind it was, was quite a drop.
And because the cabin is on such a steep hill, the state park is bringing in engineers before they can move on to cleaning up what's left behind.
The state has their own engineers and their own people that looks at that. Once that they get through, then demolition will probably start, and it'll be cleaned up.
In Russell County, meteorologist Adam Burniston.
The emergency manager says Sunday's storms also knocked out power to many others of the county, but fortunately there were no other major incidents. A Clay County man faces several charges after authorities say he jumped into a river trying to get away from police. Here's a look at Christopher Collins. Manchester police say he had a warrant and police saw him. They say he rode away on a bike, then got into the river and swam away. Police found him a short time later clinging to a tree. They say he let go and tried to run away again before arriving at the river bank. He faces several charges, including fleeing or evading, having a concealed weapon, and public intoxication. A Floyd County woman indicted in connection to a deadly crash pleaded not guilty today. A pretrial conference for Elizabeth Limster is scheduled for July 18th. In May of last year, police say she crossed the center line and hit a car being driven by Jessica Owens head on. Owens died in the crash. A grand jury indicted her on murder, DUI, and other charges. Today, officials broke ground in Harlan on what will be a huge help in getting industry to the area. The Harlan County Business Park along Highway 119 in Cumberland is what county officials say is a sweet spot for future businesses. It's located within an opportunity and promise zone. The site also is on an area that was once mine land, so if it does qualify for abandoned mine land funding. Officials say the next step is bringing in those businesses.
We've finally broken ground. We're actually going to be able to share this story with new companies that are looking at maybe relocating or expanding to our part of Kentucky. So we're real excited to share our story of our available workforce, to share our story of a build-ready site.
The site itself is 50,000 square feet with an additional expansion capability of 50,000 square feet. Tonight, the eyes of the world are latched to Paris, France. Here's a live look at the Notre Cathedral. You can see fire crews getting water onto the flames. 400 firefighters were called in to help. And this is what the fire looked like earlier today. The flames quickly spread through the centuries-old cathedral. The iconic spire and the roof of the building collapsed. There has not been any report of injuries in the fire. Paris's deputy mayor says the damage is just colossal. And the Notre Dame Cathedral is a big part of anyone's trip to Paris. The tourist attraction is also a centerpiece for Catholic and Christian faiths alike. WYMT's Phil Pendleton talked to a Lexington priest about his 2 trips to Notre Dame. He's live from Christ Church Cathedral, and he joins us now. Phil?
We talked to Father Jim Sitchko, who is a very well-known Catholic priest here in central Kentucky and pretty much all over Kentucky, and he says that words cannot adequately describe the sense of loss and sadness that he has been feeling in watching coverage of the fire at the Notre Dame Cathedral, a symbol to so many all over the world. And he also says that with it being Holy Week this week, his thoughts turn to the numerous services that would have been held at the cathedral. Many Catholics worldwide will attend services every day this week. He says the architecture and the art inside the building is such that your senses are overloaded. For it to last this long and now to be seemingly destroyed or at least heavily damaged in a short amount of time is just something to think about.
To be honest with you, not only shocked, but extreme sadness. Sadness in the fact that this amazing historic structure, over 800 years old, up in flames.
And again, the timing of this fire, with it being Holy Week this week here at the Christ Church Cathedral here in Lexington, there are Holy Week services taking place. There are Holy Week services taking place all over the world. He says that with it being Easter this weekend, he says all of these services marking the resurrection of Jesus Christ. He says he hopes that the Notre Dame Cathedral will rise again as well, or at least some good will come from it. Live in Lexington, Phil Pendleton, WYMT Mountain News.
All right, thank you, Phil. Now, the iconic Notre Dame Cathedral spire stood 300 feet. There will be more coverage in reaction to the fire at the Notre Dame Cathedral coming up on the CBS Evening News with Jeff Glor. That's at 6:30. Congressman Andy Barr is calling on a high-profile colleague to apologize. Barr sent a letter to Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez on Friday, referencing what he calls a lack of civility toward another colleague. The New York Congresswoman is a rising star in the Democratic Party and a frequent target of Republicans for her liberal views. Congressman Barr had invited her to tour a Kentucky coal mine, but he told Garrett Weimer that he just wants her to apologize first.
Meeting with folks at a Madison County Golden Corral, Congressman Andy Barr was in front of a mostly friendly crowd, a far cry many times from the halls of the U.S. Capitol.
At the end of the day, we all need to treat each other as colleagues with respect.
Congressman Barr says that's why he sent a letter to Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez of New York, urging her to apologize for comments on Twitter to Texas Congressman Dan Crenshaw before she comes to Kentucky.
And I want to invite the gentlelady to come to Eastern Kentucky.
Last month, during a House Financial Services Committee meeting, Barr invited Ocasio-Cortez to tour a coal mine with him.
I invite her to go underground with me and meet the men and women who do heroic work to power the American economy.
It was part of an exchange about climate change and the proposed Green New Deal.
You want to tell people that their concern and their desire for clean air and clean water is elitist? Tell that to the kids in the South Bronx, which are suffering from the highest rates of childhood asthma in the country.
Congressman Barr says his invitation to Congresswoman Ocasio-Cortez to come here to Kentucky is still open. He says they have profound disagreements, but he made the invitation in good faith.
I want her to show she has an open mind, come to Kentucky and learn about the ramifications of her proposals on real people struggling in real ways.
Barr says he's also willing to have an open mind and travel to her district. In Richmond, Garrett Weimer, WYMT Mountain News.
A spokesman for the Congresswoman told the Herald Leader, Washington's bureau, that the Congresswoman does not plan on apologizing, saying the colleague she criticized was, quote, fanning the flames of hate. The spokesman added that the borders to Kentucky is still open, so they do not need Congressman Barr to meet them with coal miners, although they would love him to participate if they do. From the measles to the mumps and even the chicken pox, you may have noticed several stories recently popping up about old viruses thought to have been long gone, making a comeback. According to our medical contributor, Dr. Ryan Stanton, it all comes down to vaccines, whether people just are not getting them or people coming into the country without the proper vaccines. Dr. Stanton says bottom line is those groups are overpowering the people who are vaccinated.
We had enough protection that you wouldn't see things spread. You would see little single cases or something, especially from traveling, but you wouldn't see these things spread because it had no place to go. So basically, it's the idea of saying you may have a spark.
Tonight at 11, WKYT's Miranda Combs explains something you can do to make sure your vaccines hold up.
And we're starting to see the skies clear, sunshine starting to return for the Mountain Parkway over into Powell County. But as we head through the rest of tonight, we will see that frost advisory go into effect. Good news is we warm back up heading into tomorrow with sunshine returning into the forecast.
But first, we'll show you how one school district is preparing their students for the workforce.
When you see news happening